All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, we're going to be giving our Week 2 preview in college football. There will be timestamps below for each game that is covered, so make sure you look down there if you're looking for a specific one. Also attached will be in-depth game breakdowns for the biggest matchups on the weekend, so check that out as well. So diving right into it, Ohio State, Oregon. Running game for Oregon will test these Ohio State linebackers in space. It was a week after Mohamed Ibrahim from Minnesota tore them up. Granted, they played a very powerful, a very big offensive line. Oregon can't exactly match up like Minnesota can up front. But they do have pretty skilled backs. C.J. Verdale, Travis Dye. These guys are really good. Antonio Brown, he's a running threat as well with his legs. Very speedy. It's going to be a big test for this offensive line, though. They weren't great last week against Fresno State. Granted, Fresno State has a really good defensive line. Aaron Mosby, Kelvin Adkins, a few of those guys. It's a good unit. They play in a much better defensive line on Saturday against Ohio State, an elite one of the nation's best. So George Moore and Stephen Jones at tackle will have some big challenges ahead of them as they get ready to face Tyreek Smith, Zachary Harrison, Haskell Garrett. And they're loaded with depth as well. So I have a lot of faith in this front four for Ohio State getting to the quarterback. They should be able to drop 5 or 6 in coverage. Brown was strip-sacked a week ago. As I mentioned, the offensive line, it wasn't exactly good. They have a lot of great receivers, though, so this is going to be a big test for that coverage. We're going to see how much they've really improved. Last week wasn't really much of a test. Didn't expect it to be through the air, but Oregon, they have pass catchers. They're very deep. Devon Williams, Johnny Johnson, Jalen Redd, the list goes on. These guys are really deep. They're going to test Josh Proctor, the deep safety. That was a big concern for Ohio State last year. Proctor played really good last week, but here's a big test right in front of him. Sedman Banks. Big time challenge. You're very interested to see how Ohio State's secondary performs. The running game for Ohio State, 130 yards and 25 carries. Once you take away that Mayan Williams 71-yarder, so they were pretty solid on the running game, but they're not as physical up front as I anticipated. The left side's very good though. Thayer Munford, Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. They will have a matchup with Kayvon Thibodeau. He's likely to play in this game, still day-to-day with an ankle, but I expect he will play. C.J. Stroud, he was rattled early. Another big test here. He stepped up in the second half of that game, made good throws, guided to his playmakers. I feel like some of those jitters should be gone. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson are going to test Oregon vertically. I feel like Oregon's secondary, they're going to have to play dirty. They're going to have to play bully ball on the outside. Michael Wright, one of the nation's top press corners. They're going to have to be physical, these Ohio State receivers. You don't want to allow them to separate. I don't want to give them 10 yards of free space to catch a bubble screen. These guys are really athletic, really speedy, very shifty. They can hurt you after the catch. So that's going to be something I want to see this Oregon secondary do. Athletic linebacking core for Oregon, Noah Sewell, Mason Funa, Justin Flo. Flo, he was all over the place last week in his debut. Big-time linebacking core for Oregon. All around, I think this is going to come down to how Anthony Brown plays. I think he's going to play a solid game. I don't know if he can carry them on the road in this environment to a victory. I'm taking Ohio State 42-30. Oregon can definitely win this game, though, but not a lot of questions marks, just I'm not sure how Anthony Brown's going to play. He's going to have to play very key, and the offensive line last week wasn't encouraging. I think Ohio State, they're going to hit some big plays down the field with their passing attack. They're going to spread it out a good bit. But Oregon, if they can win the physicality battle, that's something Minnesota kind of had an edge in last week. They were much more physical for most of the game against Ohio State, at least in the clips I saw. So if that secondary can get physical, their offensive line can match it. Oregon can most definitely win this game. They're very talented, very deep. So I have Ohio State winning by a score of 42-30. But do not think I'm disrespecting Oregon one bit. They can certainly win this football game. Looking to Pitt and Tennessee, 3-point spread for Pitt. Joe Milton, the Tennessee quarterback, completed only 48% last week. The running game carried him, had a big part. He did a big part as well, 2 touchdowns, about 50 yards. Tyon Evans, Jabari Small, 100-plus against the Bowling Green defense that was one of the nation's worst last year and has been for quite a while. So I really didn't learn much. And then Milton, of course, struggled as a passer. And Jalen Hyatt, a receiver, a playmaker, Velas Jones. They have some good guys. Altogether, though, I really don't expect this passing attack to do a whole lot. I don't really have high expectations for him in this game. Playing a tough Pitt defense. Front seven, really. Servassier Dennis, Cam Bright, John Morgan. There's some playmakers up there. They're sturdy at tackle, though, Tennessee is with Cade Mays, Darnell Wright. But I feel like Pitt should win this matchup on the interior. Kalijah, Cansey, another one of those guys. John Preshin, He made great plays last week, a linebacker. I feel like this front seven is just going to be too much for Tennessee. They ran the ball pretty well last week, and I think they might have some success on the edge. But interior, I think Pitt's just going to eat them up, and it's going to give the secondary an opportunity to make plays. Tennessee, their secondary isn't bad, though. Jaden McCullough at safety, stand out in coverage. Theo Jackson, he played really well last week. 3 pass breakups, 11 tackles. Overall, not sure what to expect because they played a terrible offense last week. A lot of young guys as well. Depth isn't exactly there. Aubrey Solomon, one of the nation's top run stoppers at defensive tackle. And Avante Taylor, he's a solid corner. You might see him shadow Jordan Addison throughout the game. Overall, the Pitt offense, Kenny Pickett, a veteran. As mentioned, he has Addison, a big home run hitter. Tazir Mack, he's been very reliable throughout his career at Pitt. I think they're just going to be too much for this thin corner group to cover. Tyler Barron at 6'5", 260. I think he could step up this year. But overall, they should have a day. Barron's defensive end for Tennessee, by the way. I think Pitt's going to win this game pretty handily. 34-17. Going on the road is not going to be easy in Neyland Stadium. But Pitt is a high upside team. And Tennessee, just too many question marks. I mean, last week didn't really tell you much. Their passing game wasn't very encouraging. Considering the defense they were playing, Joe Milton should have played much better. Last year at Michigan, I had high expectations for him, and he just completely, didn't do anything with it. So, not very high on this Tennessee football team. But who knows? They could shock you. We're going to learn a lot about Tennessee this weekend. I'll tell you that. But 34-17 for the Panthers is the predicted score. Looking at UAB and Georgia. UAB, the Blazers, really good offensive line, one of the nation's best in my opinion. Probably the best in the CUSA. 5 seniors up front. But the problem is, can Jermaine Brown, Dwayne McBride get things going at running back? They're facing a phenomenal offensive line, a great front seven that excels at stopping the run. They dominated last week. I really feel like UAB's offensive line is probably better than Clemson's. I mean, that's a good assumption. I said that before that game, Georgia would probably eat Clemson up on the interior offensive line. That's what happened. So there's nothing wrong with saying UAB, a veteran group, a good group. Last year that they blocked for one of the best running backs in school history. These guys are really good. So they don't have an edge by any means, but I feel like they could probably hold up quite well for the most part. Tyler Johnson, he threw 15 interceptions his first year. Last year kind of bounced back. I think he's going to throw some picks here. I don't really have high confidence in UAB passing attack. They like to get things done in the trenches on the ground. Tyler Johnson, though, if he plays well, then this game, UAB could be lurking. I do think the score will ultimately be closer than people think, regardless of JT Daniels plays or not. Carson Beck took some first-team reps this week as Daniels was injured with a core injury. He's still questionable, but regardless if he plays, I still think this will be a closer game than people think. Questionable at wide receiver as well with some of their injuries. Some of those guys likely not to play this week. Playing a good UAB defense, Chris Mole, Dejon Turner in the back end, linebacker Noah Wilder. They lack great size on the defensive line, though, so UGA should be overpower them and run the ball well. I think Zamir White, James Cook, Kendall Milton, I think those guys are going to all play a pretty significant role on the ground. Don't expect Georgia to do anything too flashy with the passing attack as they're still waiting for those guys to get back. So I think Georgia's going to win this one by a score of 24-7. Texas A&M and Colorado, these guys will meet at Mile High and Denver. Colorado last week, they had no passing game against Northern Colorado. It was very lackluster. Brendan Lewis would just end up scrambling a lot. He's really good at keeping his eyes downfield, but nothing was available. Dimitri Stanley, Levante Chenault, Brendan Rice. They have a good group of pass catchers, though. If they can get this passing game going, this offense could be really good. Brendan Lewis, his first career start, a lot to work on. But last week was pretty concerning with Texas A&M lurking. Jared Broussard at running back, the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year a season ago. Fast, shifty runner. Can't teach people to run the way he does. It's impressive to watch. It's fun to watch. Overall, it's a great, a good Buffalo rotation. Ashad Clayton, Alex Footnot. I think they had 4 different players score a touchdown last week on the ground. So they have a good running back rotation, but they will be facing DeMarvin Leal and a physical defensive line. Michael Clemens and Tyreek Johnson, pretty good edge rushers. Colorado has a respectable offensive line, but I think A&M will control the line of scrimmage for the most part. Looking at the Aggie offense, though, Haynes King, he had 3 interceptions last week. Didn't play a good defense at all. It was one of the nation's worst, actually, he played last week. Play a talented Colorado defense. This defense is no joke. Carson Wells off the edge is a star. Mustafa Johnson, he's back. He's approved to play, declared for the draft. Didn't get drafted. He's back at Colorado. He's a phenomenal player for Colorado. He just got back, though, so I'm not sure if he'll play an impact in this game. But they would love to have him on the field, so don't be shocked if you see his name called. Love this linebacking core. Outside of Wells, it's Nate Landman and Robert Barnes, a transfer from Oklahoma. Landman is just an old-school guy, always around the ball, always making a lot of tackles. This guy is going to control this defense, and he's going to have a big game for them to win. The Buffalo secondary is no slack either, Mekhi Blackman, Isaiah Lewis, really good secondary. Those guys had breakout years a season ago, and they're going to try to keep that going. It could get interesting in those backs from Texas A&M are held in check. Devon Achane and Isaiah Spiller. As mentioned, King had 3 picks a week ago. I think this is going to be a little bit closer than most think. I do think Damani Richardson, Leon O'Neal, Miles Jones. Jones was really good in zone last season. And the 2 safeties I just mentioned, they're playmakers. Neal had 2 picks last week. Richardson's a good tackler. His passing attack did nothing last week, really, for A&M. Their offense could crumble a little bit, but I think some big plays will be made. Being in Denver is going to help Colorado. Don't really have high expectations for the passing attack, but I think they could get that going. I think this is going to be a lot closer than people think, with it being played pretty much at home for the Buffs. I'm going to take 30-17 Colorado. Very interested to watch this game. I think it's really going to be interesting. Another one where you're going to learn a lot about these teams. But if those backs are held in check for A&M, it could really get interesting here. So keep an eye out for that. Cal and TCU, the rematch of the 2018 Cheez-It Bowl. If you remember, 10-7 score with 9 total interceptions. That also went to overtime, and then we had that many points. Complete wildness. I think we'll see a little bit more better ball this time around. I still think we'll see a low score. Let's dive into it, and we'll find out why. Tough Golden Bears defense for the most part. Did a solid job versus the Nevada pass defense. They never really had bad positioning, I thought, but Carson Strong is just really good. Josh Drayton's a nice guy. He's a nice playmaker in the slot. He's a good press man corner as well. Duo safeties, Elijah Hicks, Daniel Scott. These are some ball players. I like what they got in the back end. Cal, they probably would have won that game last week if they continued to run the ball. Bill Musgrave opted not to after they started the game 14-0 on the first 2 drives by mainly running the ball. Damian Moore was really good. And then after that, it just pretty much shot away from it the rest of the game. In the passing attack, it wasn't effective whatsoever. Chase Garbers, 4.7 yards per attempt. They didn't get Keoka Crawford involved. And it was just a pretty ugly showing, in all honesty, from the offense the rest of the game. As when they went back to the run late in the game, it was working. When they got that field goal, it came with some big plays on the ground. So I'm not sure what Bill Musgrave was doing. We'll see if they get back to doing that. It was really working really well for him. Pretty good rush defense from TCU. Struggled a tad bit versus the bigger and better teams. Cal doesn't really provide that threat though. They don't have a power running game really that's going to scare people. Even though they were good last week in that category, they're not a Texas or an Oklahoma on the ground. You look at the TCU defense. Kahari Coleman at the defensive end. He's not going to play in this game. Noah Daniels in corner should be back. He didn't play in week 1. Nice secondary. Him and Tre'Vius Hodges-Tomlinson. Very good secondary for TCU. TJ Carter as well, the Memphis transfer. He's a playmaker there. So this secondary is a very favorable matchup. Coleman is gone, but O'Shawn Mathis is still going to be there off the edge. Ferocious pass rusher. Him and Coleman make up probably the top duo of edge rushers in the conference when fully healthy. D. Winters at linebacker. I expect him to have a big season. He's going to make some plays in this game. Very good defense from TCU. You look at Cal's, though, they're not bad either. The secondary, as I just mentioned. It's going to be interesting to see how TCU's deep group of backs can fare against Cam Good, Keanu Dang, and J.H. Tevis at defensive end. The front seven is just as solid as the secondary. Some good playmakers there. The TCU Horned Frogs have a great rotation of backs. Keandre Miller and Zachary Evans are 2 of the standouts. Max Duggan at quarterback. He's a complete gamer. Makes all the plays of his legs. TCU doesn't possess, a great deep threat attack with him under center, but they have pass catchers that can win matchups. Quinn Johnson, Tay Barber, J.D. Spielman, some versatile guys. I think you're going to see Doug Meacham draw up some things to get those guys involved. I think you're some wrinkles, that is. I think you'll see some wrinkles in this offense that's going to get them involved, get Cal on its heels. Being at home is certainly going to help. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, though. I'll take TCU 17-14. We could see more points. I don't really expect there to be more than that. It has nothing to do with the 2018 bowl game, but I do think these are 2 really good defenses. And TCU's still trying to kind of find their edge on offense, I guess you could say. Doug Meacham's a great offensive coordinator. They have a great rotation of backs, but still early in the season. Again, they don't have a great downfield passing attack. And Cal's not a bad defense. Justin Wilcox, it's gonna be a bit of a chess match in this game between him and Meacham. I think this is gonna be a fun game to watch. Defensive affair. I'll go 17-14 TCU. Really high on the Horned Frogs, but here in week 2 could get caught sleeping. I think Cal will be prepared. I do see the Frogs winning, but this should be a really good game. Iowa travels to Iowa State. Jack Trice Stadium is a site for college game day this weekend. Physical game is what I'm expecting. Both teams really evenly matched and all across the board, all facets, whether it's tight ends, offensive line, defensive line, veterans, tough, disciplined guys. That's what these football teams are made of. We'll go ahead and still give some analysis, even though really you can just throw it out the window. I got a full breakdown on this game, but at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to who makes the fewest mistakes, who can execute the best, all facets of the game, special teams included. I think Xavier Hutchinson, Jalen Noel at receiver, they can make plays in some space. I think downfield they're going to be taken away by a great corner duo, Riley Moss, Matt Hankins, Charlie Kolar. He should be back. He's going to be key as well as trying to free those guys up on the edge. If you can make plays across the middle, it's going to free them up on the outside a little bit. I think your best bet is to try to get these guys just in a little bit of space. Noel, quick cutter. Hutchinson, very good after the catch. Big body, too. I think it's about 220 pounds. Try to get the ball to these guys on screens, short curls, let them make plays. That's going to be your best bet because I don't think anything's going to be available for Brock Purdy downfield. Will McDonald, defensive end for the Cyclones, he's going to have plenty of chances to make plays. I think I will be in some obvious passing situations quite frequently throughout the football game. The offensive line, Tyler Linderbaum, one of the nation's top at his position at center and on the offensive line as a whole. Tyler Goodson, really good runner on the outside. He can get it done in between the tackles. That's not to knock Breece Hall, a 1,500-yard rusher from a season ago. Hall's very elusive. He's a game breaker himself. He's tough to tackle. Runs with a lot of physicality. Iowa, they've not ran the ball very well versus ISU over the last two. I think it's 112 yards or less in the last two against Iowa State. Again, it's going to be who can make the fewest mistakes, be the best, most disciplined. Two great linebacking cores are really going to dictate how this game goes. Jake Hummel, Mike Rose, they're really good in coverage. I think that's a big edge for them. Orion Vance, another one of the seniors. But Seth Benson and Jack Campbell are no slouch himself. Campbell, he's very athletic himself. I feel like he could play a role in coverage. I have Iowa winning this game 16-13. Don't take my word on that because this could really go either way. I just know that Iowa, I feel like they're going to be the more disciplined team. I think they're going to make better plays down the stretch. They've won 5 in a row as well. Iowa State has been unable to get over the hump yet. That's until they get over that hump and beat Iowa, they're not going to be a legit playoff team. Iowa State will, of course, be the trendy pick at home this week, but I think Kirk Ferentz is going to have these guys ready and they're going to go. But either way, very excited to see this game. Very, very evenly matched once more. Can't wait to see what happens on a Saturday in a Appalachian State travels to take on Miami, 6-point favorites at home. The bookmakers don't seem to have much faith in Miami. They were absolutely torn up last week. Offense couldn't get anything explosive going. Defense gave up a 94-yard passing touchdown. They got shredded all day by Bryce Young. I feel like the sense in the Miami locker room is the season's going to start here on Saturday. A lot of people expected him to get blown out by Alabama. Of course, the players didn't feel that way, but it was a very somber mood, I'm sure, after that beatdown. But they still have a lot to play for. It's only week 1. Manny Diaz, I feel like, will have these guys ready. They face a nice, great running back room. Nate Noel, Cameron Peoples. I do think Miami's front seven of Nesta Jade Silvera, Gilbert Frierson, I think Jafari Harvey. I think these guys are really going to anchor down and try to moderate this running game. I think App State will have some good success. I think they're going to try and moderate it, though. But they're going to want Chase Bryce to throw the ball. Last year was weird. He went 20 of 25 for 94 yards against Miami, and they lost by 48 points. So very efficient, wasn't effective, and they got blown out. He was overall a turnover machine last year. Had a lot of interceptions, a lot of fumbles. That could be true here, too. They'll, have to lean on the pass a little bit more than they did last week against DCU in a very favorable matchup. It's not this is a bad matchup, but I think Miami has a little bit of an edge. They're going to be playing with energy. I think they'll be playing with an edge themselves, with a chip on their shoulder in the front. They have the talent and they have the strength to at least moderate it a little bit. The wide receivers don't fare very well versus a talented Miami secondary. Thomas Hennigan's good, but other than that, it's question marks. Who do you guys have that can separate against a talented secondary. Booba Bolden, DJ Ivey, and Gervin Hall. These guys are going to want to look to bounce back after a poor showing last week. Spirit was a little hurt, after Alabama. They're going to try to right the ship. Still kind of lingering from last year's season, it feels like. But I do think they're going to shore things up against the run, slow it down a bit. They held Bama to under 4 yards a carry. They weren't terrible against the run last week, so that's a little encouraging. I don't think Alabama was exactly trying to dominate in the trenches as much as I thought they would. I didn't really watch the second half of that game, so I'm not really sure how it went. But if they were as bad as they were against UNC, then Alabama would be able to just walk. Their running backs would be able to just walk, and they would be all over the field. So a little encouraging. Brian Robinson didn't really run off or rip off any big runs like I thought he would. So, again, I didn't watch the full game, so I could be wrong. Maybe Alabama was just not looking to terrorize them. But by the looks of things, it looked like a little encouraging performance, at least from what I saw in the first half against the run. The App State defense, they're really good. Demetrius Taylor off the edge. He's a playmaker. Sean Jolly at corner. Some very good players on a tough defense. The great secondary, though, they led the FBS in fewest completion rate last season by opponents. I think they played in like 10 games, like 48% total. So this secondary is no slouch. I do think Miami should be able to get a little bit of balance going. I think Cam Harris will have some good runs. De'Aaron King, he's going to want to look to bounce back as last week. They didn't have any explosive plays. These guys are ready to go. They're full of energy. The receivers, Mike Harley, Charleston Rambo. If the Canes are lazy, though, they will lose this game. Remember back in 2016, everyone's like, when the Canes went to Appalachian State, they're like, Miami's going to win this game. They got beat by 25, 30 points. I think Miami, 35-13, that's what I'm going to go with. App State will be a trendy pick here to upset Miami. But again, I think these guys, their spirit was hurt last week, and they're ready to come out here and right the ship. They have a lot to play for in week 2. The season, I feel like, kind of starts here for Miami. But again, if they're lazy, they will lose this game. I think they're going to come out with an edge, though, and I think they're going to take care of business at home. We look to Texas and Arkansas. This is the first Arkansas home game sold out since 2017, I believe. So people are anxious for this one. Sam Pittman, these guys have a pretty solid roster. Treylon Burks, a receiver, one of the nation's best. He's going to make his presence felt. For the athletic skills he has, for his size, is just highly impressive. Veteran secondary, Deshaun Jamison, B.J. Foster. Pete Kwiatkowski, he could look to shade a safety over to his side. That will open up the door for guys like Davion Warren to make plays. We'll see what Kwiatkowski's scheming is for this one, but Treylon Burks can't beat you. But if you take him away, it's probably going to be your best bet. KJ Jefferson, he was not great last week. 128 yards on 57%. He also had a pick. Did throw for a touchdown. But overall, the passing attack wasn't a threat whatsoever. And it's not really going to be any easier here against Texas. If they take away the best receiver, too, it's going to make things all that much harder. Demarion Overshawn, Luke Brockmeyer. Brockmeyer was really good at linebacker last week. No slouch whatsoever from those guys. Overshawn, he's for over a year now been one of Texas's best players on defense. I think they're going to be tough up front. There's a pretty good rush defense last season. People overlooked it. Other than that one run by Chris Smith, they held up very well against a very good offensive line from the Raging Cajuns. I think they're going to stagger Treylon Smith a bit, try to make KJ Jefferson make the plays through the air. And he had a good game against Missouri last year. I was really impressed in. I think Jefferson has some good potential, but last week wasn't good. He's not the only one, though. Everyone across the nation, a lot of people, Emory Jones being one of them, a lot of games where they probably should have played a lot better and they didn't. So I'm not going to panic too hard, but I think here this is going to be a little tough of a matchup for him. Being at home is certainly going to help. Jefferson just needs to be consistent. Make plays with your feet. Make the short, easy throws when they're there. Get some confidence going. It's going to open up things downfield for Burks. But it's a disciplined defense for the Hogs, but they did allow 180-plus rushing yards in 7 games last year. Over 180 in 7 different games, that is, I should specify. Grant Morgan at linebacker, I love this guy. Kind of like Nate Landman from Colorado, an old-school guy all over the field making plays. Jalen Catalan at safety. He's a very big, high-energy player. He brings on every single down in the back end. And the home field crowd, he's going to feed off that. They're going to feed off him. So if he's making plays, the bigger it's going to be of a challenge for Texas to win this football game, because this guy is one of the nation's top defensive backs. Or he's on his way to being so, I guess you should say. Bumper Poole, another stout linebacker. They do lack proven run stoppers on the defensive line. That's my biggest problem with the Hogs. And they're facing a nice duo of backs from Brian Robinson and Roschon Johnson. Bijan, very elusive. This guy can bounce out, do anything. This guy is athletically gifted as they come. Very impressive. You're going to have 2 or 3 guys hit him to bring him down. Hudson Card, he was very smart last week, made some good plays with the football. Let's see how he does in his first career road start. I trust him, though. Stark's going to do everything he can to make him comfortable. I think this running game will get going. Not too much will be asked of Card here on the road. I like Texas in this one. I expect another strong showing on both sides of the ball for Texas, though. I'm going to go 28-17 Texas. I think this will be close in the first half because of the Hogs. They will feed off the home crowd. This could be tight all the way through 4 quarters because I think Pittman's going to have them ready and amped up. But Bijan, he's going to rip off a few big runs down the stretch. Going to help down the Hogs 28-17. NC State hosts Mississippi State, a very underrated matchup this week. I didn't watch the Louisiana Tech game, but they somehow got themselves down 20, 21 points against them. They came back. The defense only allowed 369 yards. This was a good defense last season. Solid rotation on its defensive front. Aaron Burrow, he's expected to be a top player for this team. Good against the run last year. They held Georgia at 8 rushing yards. I didn't really watch much of that game, so I'm not sure how that happened. But when you run the ball 20-plus times and come away with 8 yards, like the Bulldogs did, they're doing something right. The secondary, though, very underrated. Colin Duncan in the slot's a good player. Martin Emerson, good ball skills. Emmanuel Forbes, probably even better ball skills. Complete ball hawk. I think, 3 interceptions he had last season. I think it was 5, something like that. Emmanuel Forbes, he's continuously growing into a great player. You look at the NC State offense, left tackle Akeem Ikowan, one of the nation's best at his position, and he'll be blocking for a great running back duo, Ricky Person, Zonovan Knight. This guy did a little bit of everything last week against USF. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Michael Carter and Javonte Williams. Not so much the skill sets, but the lightning and thunder type duo. You guys are really going to be leaning on each other all year long. I think they're both going to have pretty good seasons last week, 100-plus yards for each of them. I do think Emeka Emezi at receiver is going to win some one-on-one matchups. Devin Carter's a nice streaker. You might be able to find him downfield. He's kind of their big play receiver. But Emeka Emezi, he's really talented. Against a good secondary, I think he'll win some of his one-on-one matchups, especially on third down. Big fan of this NC State defense. Peyton Wilson, Isaiah Moore, linebacker. They had 100-plus tackles each last year. Complete playmakers. My biggest question mark, though, very interested to see how this secondary performs. They were inconsistent last season. They do have some experience in there now. Shaheem Battle, Jakeem Harris, those are my favorites to watch. All around, though, the secondary, inconsistent. They're going to be playing this air raid attack. So you're going to find out a lot about NC State's secondary in this game. It's Tony Gibson's second season. Very excited to see how they do in this game. Gibson, he loves to bring defenses that have a strong physicality level. They didn't force a lot of. I don't think they forced a lot of turnovers last year, as much as they'd like. So they're going to be forcing some in this game. It's going to probably set them up with some good field position. It's going to be a good game, though. Low scoring. I'll take NC State 24-21. If those backs can get to 200 yards, then that should solidify a win for NC State. Being at home will give them an edge, of course. But I'll take the under in this one. A lot of people are probably expecting a lot of points. But when you really get down to the gritty on these teams, these are 2 very solid defenses. Still a little iffy on the NC secondary, so we'll find out how good they are. They have Kevin Lemson in a couple weeks. So they certainly won't get caught looking ahead or nothing like that, but very interested to see how the secondary goes. 24-21 NC State. Looking at the primetime ABC game on the nightcap, Washington travels to take on Michigan. Very powerful offensive line for the Huskies. One of my favorite in all of FBS, only left tackle Jackson Kirkland is one of the best at his position as well. But they could not run behind them one bit last week. It's a nice group of backs, Richard Newitten, Sean McGrew, Kamari Pleasant. He got plenty of touches, but 23 carries for 89 yards when you take away the sacks. They just couldn't get anything going against Montana. It just doesn't seem like a very good matchup. Coming into the preseason, I had Washington win this game, but the running game couldn't get anything going with that phenomenal offensive line last week. Very concerning passing attack. Dylan Morris had 3 interceptions. His receivers didn't help him out a lot. They're down 4 guys in the receiving core, 2 starters, that is, as well. And they were already thin coming into the year, and they're that beat up. Just, wow, it's going to be real. I just do not have a lot of faith in this passing game for Washington. Cade Otton's going to have to play the game of his life. Somehow better than the one he had against Utah last year when he had 100-plus for 3 scores. I do think this running game could test the depth of Michigan's defensive line. It's not exactly great. Donovan Jeter's about 315 pounds, so he's probably going to have to play a big role. Aiden Hutchinson, he'll be coming off the edge against Jackson Kirkland, so that's going to be a great matchup. NFL scouts will have their eyes on that one. Ronnie Bell's out for Michigan for the season. Unfortunately, he tore an ACL, and they didn't really. Cade McNamara only had 9 completions last week, so they didn't exactly prep anybody. They spent a lot of time doing that in practice, but in terms of game reps, it can be anybody. Cornelius Johnson, Roman Willison, Dalen Baldwin. He caught a 69-yard touchdown pass last week in his own right. Overall, as a team, though, 13 completions. So I didn't really have the opportunity to really start dishing it out and insert new guys. I do have a lot more faith in the receiving core than the Huskies. But, again, they're playing a very tough secondary. Kyler Gordon, really athletic. Brendan Radley-Hiles back on a big stage. He's a big hitter, a big playmaker at times, very inconsistent in Oklahoma, but he's a big-time talent. Trent McDuffie, though, one of the nation's top corners, he's very good versus the run, phenomenal outside corner. He's physical, aggressive, good ball skills. He's going to test these young wideouts. So I don't exactly see either team getting anything going through the passing attack. As I mentioned, not very confident in the Washington pass catchers, and they're playing a very tough secondary. Features a great duo of safeties, Brad Hawkins, Daxton Hill. I think they're going to take away this vertical passing game. Vincent Gray, Jermaine Green, though, at corner, they will be tested. I think Mike McDonald's scheme it better fits what they're trying to do. Those guys were just really beat up in coverage last year in man, but they're really good at times. This is very high upside secondary. You look at 2 guys in the interior for Washington, Sam Tumazi, Tuli Gaziana. They're physical, nasty, 300 pounds plus, but they're playing a very respectable offensive line from Michigan, an underrated one. Last week against Western Michigan when I ran the ball with running backs, sweeps with receivers, did a very good job of sealing the edge. Of course, they're playing a different animal this week. Uyan Uafashio at linebacker. This guy's a freak. Ryan Bowman, he likes to break out every once in a while as well at outside linebacker. So this pass rush, it could disrupt Michigan, but again, a respectable offensive line that looked really good last week. It's going to be a fun matchup. Who do I think is going to win? For that matchup specifically, neck and neck, really, I think. Michigan will have their big plays. Washington will. Overall, though, the Wolverines, I think their front seven is going to fight hard. I think they're going to collapse the run because they realize they have an edge in the secondary. I think you're going to look to see them load some boxes at least early because, again, I don't have a lot of faith in that Washington receiving core. So Michigan, I think they have a big edge in that area. Washington's defense, I think they're going to play lights out. But overall, I think their offense is not going to give them a lot of help. And I think Michigan's going to win this game 24-10. I just don't have any faith in this receiving game for Washington, so that's why I'm picking a Michigan win. Michigan, I don't think their offense is going to play great, but they're going to play they don't need to be great. Just pick up a couple first downs, get the midfield, punt it away, let your defense do the work, set you up for short fields, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think Washington will struggle all night long in Ann Arbor as Michigan picks up the win 24-10. Looking at Utah and BYU, it's been a while since BYU's beaten Utah. They had 345 passing yards last week. Gunnar Cruz had 35-plus completions or something like that. It was very good. Didn't expect that type of performance from Arizona. You look at Charlie Brewer, Brett Cooley downfield. I think this Utah passing attack will have some big plays. Britton Covey as well. They're physical up front, both sides of the ball. Tavion Thomas at running back. Micah Bernard. I think Charlie Brewer will make some smart plays. He's going to pick up some first downs with his legs. I think they're going to be a very efficient and effective Utah offensive performance. Their defense on the other side. Devin Lloyd, I think he's going to be great. He's one of my favorite players in all of college football. Tyler Allergy, I feel like against guys like Devin Kafusi, Mike Tafua, they're going to stonewall this BYU running attack. Allergy will be clogged up. Jaron Hall, though, he can make plays with his arm and his leg. High upside guy. He might be able to hit Romney downfield for some big plays. Isaac Rex maybe. But this is a physical contest all around. The secondary for Utah, I think this is the year they're going to start to gel together. Jatarvius Broughton, Clark Phillips. Did a lot of ups and downs last season, but they only played in a couple of games, and of course there's a COVID year. I think they're going to play good coverage downfield. And BYU, 4 of 12 on third downs, only 368 yards of offense versus Arizona. Not a good defense. They got 45 a game last year. It wasn't very good. They faced an elite one on Saturday, so I'm picking Utah to win this one 24-10. It wasn't a very good performance against Arizona. And you're going to try to turn around and beat Utah the next week. Being at home will give you the edge, but I'm going to take Utah to win this ball game. So that's going to wrap everything up. On the final slide, there will be my predictions for the other games, some other notable games. But if you like more analysis, go to everythingcfb.com. and it should be there. That's going to wrap everything up for this. Make sure you follow us, Everything College Football _ on Instagram for coverage daily. Leave your comments on who you think is going to be the winners of these games. Leave a like and subscribe. All right.